Have you ever wondered why some customers are just not that into you, no matter what you do? Hey, my name is Van Puchert, and I believe that most of the world's problems are just interesting design challenges in disguise. In this video, I might not be able to solve that specific problem, but I can give you a couple of tools or pointers how to try and figure out why that has happened. So in this video, I want to introduce the concept of archetypes. It's a very wide field, and 10 minutes is not going to do it justice. However, I've got a little bit of help of a deck of cards, still in beta version, this time from the team at livid.be, a nice agency that does a lot of branding that will hopefully help you kind of understand this better and also introduce you to an interesting, nice tool as always. So let's get into archetypes. So the father of archetypes is Carl Jung, Swiss psychiatrist. And what is an archetype? So archetype is kind of a set of behaviors or a pattern, if you will, that you recognize in a group of people or in a brand. So there's a whole bunch of different archetypes. Some of them are standard. You can find them everywhere. You can create your own. But the theory is that a business, a person, or a group of people can fit into a set of behavior and therefore then make up said archetypes, right? So some of the archetypes that you'll find out there that pops up often is, for example, the mentor. So if you look at Gandalf, for example, or Yoda in movies, they're usually like the mentor, the sage. But I've made a simple drawing just to explain my train of thought here. Now, you could say that archetypes can inform your customers, your type of customers, or help you with customer segmentation. And to an extent, that is true. But fundamentally, when you run into archetypes out in the wild, you'll see them being used around specific efforts around branding. Now, in my drawing here, I've got a customer, and then a business, and that's a one-to-one connection. So does this business appeal to this specific customer? In fact, I'll draw a little arrow there to explain that there's a question mark here. Now, of course, a business goes out, it defines a vision and a mission. You need to make sure that appeals. However, sometimes people get confused with this whole mission, vision stuff. And what I would say is that a business needs to express their why. Like, why do they exist? So it's not necessarily their products or their features and pricing, whatever, but why does this business exist out there? For example, Nike wants to turn everybody into an athlete, right? So that's their why. It's not just only about shoes. It's one thing to say, okay, cool, this is my why, but how do you express that? How does all your employees, for example, because there's a whole army of people behind the brand, of course, working in different departments, and they represent the brand, how do they express the why of this business? And that's why you need to kind of give your business a personality. And this is where you turn to archetypes. So what kind of patterns can I use to define my business? So to wrap up my spiel about archetypes, you can imagine that if you set something like this down, it helps you create a framework for how your brand or your product will behave in the market. That also helps you then define why certain customers get drawn to your brand and then certain customers don't like actually engaging with you in the first place. Now, this is just a quick primer on archetypes. I might do a follow-up, but I also wanted to introduce the beta version of this tool set by the team at livid.be. Now, this is a beta version of the tool. However, they've been using this tool with success on their customers, I've been told, and they might be releasing a public version of this toolkit at the later stage. I also have to mention that the toolkit actually forms part of a larger process. So it's not about just a deck of cards. There is a larger process like defining why your business is doing certain things. But for this video, I'm not going to dive too deep into that. Great quality set of cards. Nice size here, playing card size. Starting off with a little booklet here, just unpacking and explaining an exercise that you can run with your team on how to actually explore archetypes for your brand. And then inside, you have 4 copies of 12 archetypes. Cool, so let's have a quick look at Livid's take on archetypes. You have the outlaw, the hero, the magician, the caregiver, the creator, the jester, the lover, the ruler, the innocent, the explorer, the everyman, and the sage. And I like how they actually turn to popular culture to express or illustrate these archetypes. If I turn to the outlaw, just an example. So what they've done here, nicely printed, they have the outlaw. And you can probably align with the words the outlaw already, but let's contextualize this, bring it a little bit more into focus. So you have Clint Eastwood here, but why? It's because he's rebellious, combative, disruptive, helps people break the status quo. So that's a reason why he's on this or represents this archetype. Then at the back, I'm not going to go through all this, but there's a little bit more detail here. So for example, there's a rebel lying deep in my soul. And then also they contextualize here, why have they used Clint Eastwood as the representation of the outlaw archetype. Then you have a little bit more information here that's aligned to the archetype around, why this is the outlaw archetype. And this is true for each of them. So you have the illustration and keywords in the front. And if you flip this over, you will then have a little bit of information about why this icon or this pop culture photo has been used, and then some detail around what this archetype represents. Cool, so how do you use these cards? Now, it's recommended that you give a set of cards to each and every person in your branding conversation. Now, luckily, these branding conversations aren't usually consisting out of 100 people, so it's definitely doable. Now, the first prompt that you want to do is to ask people to look at their set of archetypes and then exclude at least 2 archetypes that does not represent the brand in its current state. So, for example, I'll just get rid of 2 of these, set them aside, and then they are done for the session. Now, the next question or prompt is to actually challenge folks to think about their current customer set, current customer behaviors, and think about which of these remaining archetypes resonate with customers as it is. So for example, maybe we have the creator as an archetype that resonates with customers as we see it at this stage. The next question you want to get into, question 3, is to say, where do we want our brand to be? What do we want to position ourselves like? And it's recommended that they select at least 3 of the archetypes. So for example, you might say, I want to be kind of a hero, maybe a little bit of an everyman, but definitely a little bit of outlaw. The important thing with archetypes is you don't really want to kind of combine archetypes. You could probably experiment with it a little bit, but ultimately what you want to do is you want to end up with one archetype that represents your brand. So everybody in the group agrees that my brand is represented by the archetype of the hero. Now here is the catch, is that of course on the specific card and the archetype of the hero, there's not a lot of information, just enough to get you going. And what you want to do is you want to define what does the hero mean for your brand specifically. So that is a quick and easy way to explore brand archetypes in a brand context. Now, ways that I would use this is that usually when on my side, on the customer side, there's a lot of segmentation and perhaps also in user experience and service design, you have a lot of persona development. And archetypes can be really useful if you plug in some of the insights into that, so it can complement the development of persona. So for example, a persona, if you know what a persona is very tactical, where archetypes are more strategic. So there's a different kind of complement there between the usage of these. So it's something that I would like to explore more in the future. Okay, there you have it. Just a quick primer on archetypes, an introduction to a beta tool, a first. And I asked the guys, how could people get their hands on it? They said, just contact us. So by all means, hassle them. They might release this to the public. So go check it out, liveit.be for more information about the tool set. But then also, I want to challenge you to go out and explore archetypes. And also, have you used them already? What is your experience with archetypes, and what kind of different scenarios are you using the concept of archetypes? And yeah, jump into the comments and let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and catch you in the comments.